This video is sponsored by Zaptec. This is the brand new Kia Niro EV, and in today's market with so many electric cars in this price segment, does this car even make sense? Where this car makes a lot of sense is here on the inside. So the Niro EV may not be the biggest car on the exterior, but you're not going to notice that from behind the wheel because this is a spacious and roomy cabin, and I'm quite impressed how much room there's in here considering the exterior dimensions of this car. So first off, the cabin is very wide. I'm almost able not to reach to the other door. Also, the center console is very low. The dashboard is low, is also pulled away from you. So everything just feels roomy and airy, and you have this great visibility out of this greenhouse. Nothing is obstructing the view. The steering wheel is also low. The gauges are low. You just have a really nice and commanding view out of this cabin. Also, practicality is very good. You have a wireless charging pad in front of you here where you have a USB-C, a USB-A, and also a 12-volt outlet. You have dual cup holders here. You have more storage. You even have this armrest with more storage there. You have a big glove box, big door bins. Yeah, this is just a roomy cabin. You can see headroom is great. I have great visibility out, and I'm sitting quite high because I can see the hood, but I still have a lot of headroom. Also, knee room, leg room is great. I'm not hitting my legs on anything. The space between the seat and the door is good. So yeah, overall, it's a very roomy and spacious cabin. Quality also, it's fine for this price point. I mean, Kia isn't a luxury brand. It's not as nice as an EV6, but I'm fine. Though there's a little bit of glossy black plastic here, too much for my taste. That gets, it gets dirty, you get fingerprints, and it gets dusty very quickly. Also, steering wheel, we're gonna cover the interior ergonomics in another section of this video, but you have physical buttons for a lot of the things, so that is a very pleasant thing. And also, these seats, though they look good and they're nice for maybe half an hour on the road, not the most comfortable on a longer trip. The Niro EV may not be the biggest car on the outside and also not have the biggest rear seats, but considering those dimensions, the rear seats are actually quite impressive and roomy. It feels like you have a lot of space here, even though you don't. It's not the biggest rear seats. I mean, you have about this much knee room, which is fine. Headroom is this much, which is fine. I'm 5'10" or 178 centimeters, but it feels much more roomy than the dimensions may suggest. And I think that has to do with this rear bench being quite a bit higher than the front seat. So you're sitting high, you have this great visibility out of the front, out of the side. So I think children are gonna love it here. This higher bench also means that, I'm not sitting that much off the floor, though you can see under thigh support isn't the best. Though you get a flat floor, so you can even sit here in the middle, even with my large winter boots, and me in the middle also, still have about this much room. It's not bad at all. I mean, 3 adults back here for a shorter period of time, no problems at all. 2 adults for a long trip, no problems at all. Also, you have a lot of storage and features. So first off, features, heated rear seats. You have USB-C ports for each of the outboard rear passengers. You have vents there. You also have a 240-volt outlet here in the middle. You have this armrest with cup holders. I mean, this rear seat for a small car like this, pretty darn good. I was never a fan of the old Niro. I just thought it was boring and bland, but this new one, I think it looks amazing. It's spectacular, it's distinct, has its own, look, has its own identity. Do I like it more than the e-Soul? I don't know. It's different enough that it's its own thing. I love them both. I just love, the distinct lines and front fascia, and also the fact that you can get those rear blades in different colors, just like the first gen Audi R8. Yeah, I think this is an A+, this exterior design. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and be sure to hit that thumbs up button down below. And if you like electric cars in general and content on electric cars, please be sure to subscribe to the channel because that is basically what I do here on the channel. Reviews, range tests, and news on electric cars. And in the upcoming months, I have many, many interesting EVs planned for testing. But now for a segment that I'd like to do here on the channel to make my channel different from other channels, and that is a deep dive into the infotainment system and driver ergonomics. In general, the driver ergonomics in the Niro EV are actually pretty darn good. The infotainment system though, that is a different story. We're going to cover that in a second. and it's a stark contrast to, well, everything else here in the cabin. So first off, you have this 2-spoke steering wheel design that you're going to find in other Hyundai and Genesis products. It's an okay design. I do think the spokes are a little bit thick, but I do like that it's open here on the bottom. Overall, it's attractive and has nice leather. I mean, it's a nice steering wheel. And also compared to the steering wheel you find in the e-Soul, this is a very nice upgrade. Everything just feels nicer and of higher quality. Again, this isn't a luxury product, so it's going to feel cheap coming from, you know, maybe an expensive German car, but at this price point, it's fine. I'm not complaining at all. On the left side here, you have your controls for your adaptive cruise control. You can also control the screen here, this 10.25 inch. And then on the right side here, you have your audio controls and also a shortcut button, voice commands and stuff like that. So it's nicely laid out. On the bottom here, you have a drive mode. So you have 3 drive modes. You have sport, eco, and normal. I usually use normal, but in my range test, I drive this car in eco. And then behind the steering wheel here, you have these paddles to control regen. So you pull this to increase regen, and then it also eventually goes into a mode called I-pedal, which is 1 pedal driving. We're going to cover that more in the driving section of this video. But overall, I mean, ergonomics are nice. You also have here on the left side, you have proper window switches. You can lock the rear windows, child safety there. You also have auto up and down for the front windows, not the rear. And then you have your traditional, you know, just mirror controls. Everything's very nice. In the center console, we have a physical button array for the HVAC controls, which is pretty darn nice. Though this panel here is touch, but we have a dedicated section here that's not connected to a screen. So this is always here except when it isn't. So if I press this, I actually have the audio settings. It's a cool gimmick, and the first time I tested this out in a Kia EV6 about a year ago, I was like, cool. But in practice, it's kind of annoying just having to toggle between this. So I just actually had it now in just the HVAC settings now in winter, but it works. It works fine. These aren't the most responsive buttons all the time, but it works fine, and everything is laid out nicely, labeled nicely, and everything is big. So you can choose. I mean, having a volume knob, I've always complained about that in cars, but in this car I actually find myself just adjusting the temperature, because you have, you know, this toggle switch here on the steering wheel. And then down here, you also have more physical buttons. So this is your gear selector. This is pretty interesting. This is a rotary dial. So reverse, drive, and then park. It's nice. It doesn't take up a lot of space. It's fine. Yeah, nothing to complain about. You also have your ignition switch here. This car, you have to turn on the ignition and turn it off. If you go out of the car and don't turn off the ignition, it like gives you an audible cue, and it won't actually let you lock the car even though you forgot to turn off the ignition. Other cars do let you, but it's nitpicking. It's not the worst. This isn't the most high technological car. This isn't an EQS like the creme de la creme where I would expect that. It's fine. You have physical buttons here. You have heated seats. You have cooled seats. You can't activate them at the same time. And also you have a heated steering wheel button here. My only complaint is that this gets really hot, and it actually doesn't warm the steering wheel the same in all places. It's warmer here on the sides and colder on the bottom, which I guess is fine. But I wish there were 3 settings here, because I just find myself turning this on and off and on and off because it gets too hot and then it gets cold. You also have the same for the passenger, and also have a rear view camera button here with parking sensors. So this is your rear view camera. Actually quite nice for this size of screen. Now to the infotainment system. So first off, this is a 10.25 inch display. And the first thing I noticed with this display is that the resolution isn't the best. And I'm not talking about me coming from a Porsche Taycan or Audis, just compared to a Volkswagen ID3. The resolution isn't the best. The layout though is a bit busy, but it's okay. I mean, they could have utilized the real estate better. But my biggest complaint is that you don't actually have a battery percentage indicator. I don't understand why cars don't give you this. You have, you know, the range, and then you have this like this analog gauge here for your battery percentage. But it's fine. It's fine. It works. You have to go into the menu here, and then this is your home button. And this isn't the most responsive. It's slow. And then you have to go into EV here. Come on, look how slow that is. And then you have your battery percentage here. Can you even see that on camera because of the contrast? Sometimes when if it's dark or light, and when this goes below 10%, that turns to like amber. It's really hard to see sometimes. And also again here, the resolution isn't the best. This is a 10.25-inch screen. The size is nice. The placement is nice. It's just not the most intuitive to use. I mean, the graphics are fine. And it's fine like swiping like this. You can see the frame rate. There are little issues, but just in general, it's just slow to input. And then the worst thing has to be the map. I mean, this map here, I'm not gonna dive too much into detail, but in my Norwegian high-speed run I did yesterday in my real time, it couldn't find any chargers. It couldn't find any, known locations, gas stations, McDonald's, because the chargers were next to McDonald's, which were next to gas stations. It was just terrible. And when you navigate to a destination or charging station, it's not going to even show you how much percentage you're going to arrive with. So yeah, this has to be one of the weakest, if not the weakest, infotainment system in the business at the moment. And this being a brand new car, that is a big disappointment. Before I take this out on the road and tell you what it is like to drive, let's go through a few highlights. So this is front wheel drive, front electric motor outputting 204 horsepower. That means 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 7.8 seconds. It has a 64.8 kilowatt hour usable battery, giving it 460 kilometers of range, WLTP. The peak charging speed is 85 kilowatts. That means 10 to 80% in something like 47 minutes, and this car starts from 420,000 kroners or 42,000 euros. This car though is the Active Plus, so this is a little bit more expensive at 465,000 kroners or 46,500 euros. But this does have, niceties like leather. It has a heated steering wheel, cooled seats, and also adaptive cruise control. Okay, behind the wheel of the Niro EV, and the first thing you're going to notice is that everything just feels light. All the controls, all the inputs, the steering wheel feels light, the pedals feel light, everything just feels light. The whole car itself just feels light. I mean, it's very comfortable going over bumps, but it settles right away. It doesn't feel like you're carrying around a lot of mass. And then I checked. You're not. This car weighs less than 1,700 kilos. It's like 1,682, which is unheard of in 2023, especially with a battery pack this size. That is amazing. And it kind of feels like driving an old Golf or something from the 80s or 90s. It kind of gives me that vibe. I'm pretty sure that if I hopped into a 1987 Golf, that would feel even lighter. But it kind of feels youthful in that way. It may be me just, harking back to, my late teens when me and my friends were driving around in, cars from the 80s. But it kind of gives me that vibe, that youthful vibe, and it makes me happy. Driving this car just makes me happy. I really like just the vibe of it. And also, the great visibility, the exterior size. If I lived in the middle of Oslo or a big city, this would be high on my list because of the space inside the cabin compared to the exterior dimensions. And also, it just feels like it has a little more ground clearance than something else which may be lower. But then we have a few things that I don't like. So first off, it's very noisy on the motorway. So if you're going to use this on a motorway, it's maybe one of the noisiest EVs I've driven in recent history. And also, though this does have I-pedal and one-pedal driving, I'm not a fan of the calibration. There's this delay between the pedal position and how the car reacts. I think Tesla and Polestar do this much better, where there's a more direct correlation. And first off, I'm like, I'm not used to this, right? But after having driven this car a week and more than 2,000 kilometers, I'm not a fan of the throttle pedal calibration. But other than that, there's nothing to complain about. As I said, I think this is a very positive driving experience. The good ergonomics also in this cabin make just everything easy. It's an easy car to live with, an easy car to use. It may not be exciting, it may not be luxurious, and it may not even be quiet on the motorway, but I enjoy driving this. Before I give you guys my final verdict on this, the Niro EV, I just want to thank today's video sponsor, Zaptec. Zaptec is a small and cool and stylish home charger that can charge up to 11 kilowatts. It's actually an award-winning charger that won Best in Test from the Norwegian Automobile Association, NOF. You can also change the cover, so if you paint your house, if you just want a different cover, you can actually change that afterwards, which is pretty darn cool. So if you want to support the channel, go to the link down below and find your retailer in your country and go purchase one if you really need a home charger, because this is an awesome one. So again, a huge thanks to Zaptec for sponsoring today's video. I start this video by asking the question, does the Kia Niro EV make sense? And it's kind of a hard one to answer. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It looks good, it's comfortable, it's spacious, it's practical, it's well equipped. There are a lot of things I like about this car. I like to drive it, I like to spend time in it, and I like to look at it. But also, it charges very slowly. It doesn't have that much range, and also the infotainment system is terrible. And it's also quite expensive, especially with the current changes in the market where the Tesla Model Y is now cheaper than this, the entry-level model with a little less range, but that car, you know, fully equipped is the same price as this fully equipped, or even a little bit cheaper. You have a Polestar 2 that may have a smaller interior, but it's better to drive in any way. It's quieter and has much better tech. And also, if you go for a long range version, you can have more range, faster charging. So, I mean, if I'd live in a city, if I wanted a small car with a lot of room, I think this is an obvious choice in that sense. But again, looking at the price, I just think as the current market sits, it's a little bit too expensive. I mean, this car with a few more bells and whistles, like a panoramic sunroof, upgraded stereo, is 500,000 kroner, so about 50,000 euros. And at that price point, there are a lot of competition that drive better, look as good, have better infotainment systems, more range, and also faster charging. So yeah, I think the price lets this down because I really, really like this car. So guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up down below. And for more car content, as always, please subscribe. See you guys later and goodbye.